Good morning, everyone. My name is Jenny Brown, and I'm the founding partner of Brown and Dutton Law Firm in Marietta, Georgia. And today we're having a webinar on overcoming the struggles of divorce. And I'm so happy to have with me Robin Stern. Good morning, Robin.
Morning. Nice to see you, Jenny. Thanks for having me on.
Nice to see you too. Robin is a business owner. He's an entrepreneur. He is the executive director of Be Better, Not Bitter, which I just love the name. And we're going to get into that a little bit more. But Robin has been through a divorce, and he's actually been through a divorce that went all the way through a trial. And his story really resonated with me. And I thought that you would have, great power, and your story is just so interesting and motivating. And so I'm really grateful that you're here today to share with your story with everyone and how you overcame the struggle of divorce and kind of got past that for the best interest of your children, because that's so often is so hard to see past the current situation and see into the future. So, Robin, can you just start by telling a little bit about yourself, and then we'll jump right into your story?
Sure. Thanks, Jenny. So again, Robin Stern, Be Better, Not Bitter. And we, the boy's mom and I went through a very long period of growing up together. I met her when I was 21 and she was 18. I was fresh out of the Marine Corps. And we kind of just fell together. Some best friends knew her and knew I, and we wound up getting together and spending a long time just dating. We didn't jump right into marriage right away. We spent almost 6 years dating and just kind of getting to know each other. And we went through our share of times and troubles. Let me tell you, we didn't have any spiritual connection in our lives. It was just, this is a great thing. We're having a great time together. We really enjoyed each other's company. We were the yin and the yang, you know. I'm a very strong leader. She needed that and loved that. And I needed somebody that could just be my person, you know, that I didn't have to worry about any issues with at all. And we wound up, buying a house and saying, wow, we should probably make this permanent. So, so it just kind of happened, and we came together and really, it was in Central Florida at the time. Her family was around, and neither one of us come from a great background. My parents were together for almost 42 years until my mom passed. Her mom had been through a lot of struggles and had some tough relationships, but you kind of overlook all those things in that new phase of love and wanting to just hope the best and see the best in everybody. So so we decided to go ahead and get married, and then it was even longer before we had any children. We traveled. I had a relative pass away and left us a substantial sum of money, and so we traveled. We were selfish. We decided rather than have the children young and enjoy our old age, we were going to have our fun now and then, deal with the children as we were older. As a matter of fact, our youngest is 17 and still lives at home. He's getting ready to go into his senior year of high school in the fall. And then hopefully he has dreams and aspirations for Georgia Tech, an engineering math type of degree. So, we got married. We waited a long time. I was 32 before my oldest son was born. So, we were very hopeful that, the maturity and the wisdom that comes with that would be a big part in helping us to navigate any rough waters that we may go through. And so we decided to get out of Central Florida back in, I guess it was 2006, 2007. And I have some relatives in Atlanta. So we looked all over the country. I really wanted to move to Colorado, but their mom was born in Hollywood, Florida. And she's like, no way we're going any further north.
That's way too cold, right?
Yeah. She said, I'll give you Atlanta, but not anything further north. That's not cool with me.
I don't blame her for that.
Oh yeah, no doubt. Right. So we found a really great house. It fit all of our, ticked off all the check boxes, and we bought it. And it was really awesome because a developer purchased our property in Central Florida, and it was a huge amount of money. And we were able to move up here and buy our house, and it gave me the time to start a new business. So we had been in the sign and graphics business in Central Florida for years, but I have a tech background from the Marine Corps and decided, hey, you know what? I did this computer thing with my brother in the early 80s. He got wined and dined away from the business by AAA when they moved into Central Florida, paid him a ton of money to come to work for them. So I said, let's go back and try that. So we started I Love My Geek, and we hung up our shingle, and I had the finances to be able to struggle in market and get through that first year. And frankly, it was very successful. We did very well. Their mom was left at home a few times. I had to travel out of state a few times. I'd be gone for a week or two. And unfortunately, in the manner of things happening, somebody got involved and infiltrated into our relationship. And no matter what we could do, no matter what we tried, the ultimate, terror happened. And we wound up going through just having that wedge into your relationship that is seemingly irremovable.
And you mentioned your children, but you have 3 kids. Is that right? And they're all boys?
Yes, ma'am. I have 3. We had 3 boys. At that point, they were, I don't know, that was 2009. So 6, 7, and 13 at the time. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So
it's interesting because, you tell your story and you figure out a little bit about what's going on in your life. And it sounds like, well, you have everything, right? You have a business that's going well. You have 3 healthy children. You did the right things, right? You waited to have kids. You waited to get married first, and then you waited to have kids, and you're still not immune.
Yeah. And that was what was so mind blowing is we thought we had done everything right. We had given ourselves all the opportunities for success. And quite frankly, no sickness, no disease, nobody had any major problems. All those things that do come in and cause those issues, they weren't there. And I think a lot of it, Jenny, was our unwillingness to really focus on the spiritual side of things. We didn't have God in our lives. And I'm just going to be totally honest with you, and where I am now, I can see that. I can look back with my hindsight and say that was the missing link. And even though we were kind of playing that game, we weren't really serious about that. We weren't really allowing ourselves to be led that way. And I fully believe that was the number one thing that allowed what happened to happen. And it was a lot of darkness. I'm not going to deny it. There was a lot of ugliness. There was, I would leave town and never had gotten any type of conversations like this out of their mom, ever. We had our arguments and our fights. There was some postpartum after the first child was born, but nothing like this. Just, it was a defensiveness that showed up. That was my first clue. It was like, why are you fighting me so hard about these simple things? I don't understand this. And that was the big thing, is I didn't understand. The confusion was the hardest thing for me to deal with, because I'm a Marine. I'm a business owner. I'm a father. I'm a man. My dad was, a very strong man. And so not being able to understand or control, and that was one of the first things I really had to learn, is I didn't have control, but to control not her, but the situation, to be able to get through to her and help her see what was going on. I think there was just a lot of blindness, whatever my faults were in the situation at that time, I was blind to them. And no matter what I could do to try and help her see, she was blind to, what was going on with her. So we were both just acting very childish and basically just being blind. We had no idea of what we were allowing to happen to our kids and our family. And at some point that came, but it wasn't then. So we wound up, it was horrible. I'm just going to tell you, it was devastating. It was destructive. It was horrible. The poison that came from both of us and the nastiness that came was just devastating. We tried to do a settlement agreement, right? So we talked it out. The first time she presented that to me, I blew up. I was like, you're out of your mind. This is my life. This is my children. This is our home. What would you even think of doing this for? How could you even go there? Her mom had been through some struggles with divorce. There was some divorce in her family. All the men in my family, well, except my one older brother, I'm from a family of 7. She is 2. We're both the babies, if that tells you anything. But We had seen some of the devastation of divorce, and we knew, what it could do to the family and to the kids. And yet here we were starting to go through this process, and I wasn't happy about it at all. So we did at some point work through those details of a settlement agreement. And my dad was very sick at the time. I was struggling to work at that point because I couldn't focus on anything. And I actually went down finally to her attorney's office. She got an attorney. I still hadn't gotten an attorney. And I went to her attorney's office to sit down and sign the settlement agreement. But thank goodness I read it first. And there had been a bunch of things changed, right? From the time that I had agreed to it to the time I went to sign it. And I can still remember saying to the attorney's assistant, I said, okay, so now after I've read this, this is neither a settlement nor an agreement. And I put it back down on the desk and I said, we're going to have to go to court. And that's when I went and contacted a very good friend who I met when I first moved up here, who was an attorney, and told him, hey, I need some guidance and direction. Now, I had been asking him along the way some simple questions about what to do, some procedural issues. But at this point, it's like, okay, look, I'm never going to make the deadline that, I have to sign. Because I guess during that settlement agreement, I should have brought this up. I was served divorce papers. So
Right.
I had to take them. The sheriff knocked on the door. I was working. I came to the door and I was, okay, what can I do? This is the way it works in Georgia. And I guess most states now. So I got the paperwork. And again, I was super angry. I'm like, why is this even happening? What is going on here? So I got to the point where I had to go ahead and hire an attorney. And thank goodness the gentleman who I'd been speaking with, who also knew me as a friend, was able to take the case for me. And I will say that it was a substantial amount of money that I didn't know where it was going to come from, but I didn't have any choice,
And so let's talk a little bit about that. So, before y'all had talked and, you didn't have an attorney. And unfortunately, a lot of people get in that situation where they don't fully read the settlement and then they sign it and they're in a terrible situation, or their kids are in a worse situation. So obviously you made the right decision in not doing that, but then you went and got your attorney. And what was the process like for you then? Once you had, you both had an attorney, did you feel like, okay, this is going the right way, or this is the beginning of the battle? How did you feel once that started?
I got to tell you, my faith really got strong at that point, Jenny. Right. So I spent a lot of time. I can remember walking around the backyard, pushing the lawnmower, so angry. I mean, murderous thoughts. Right. I mean, I was seriously contemplating doing some really tragic, horrible things. And, I don't know if you know the story of Moses saying you can't kill all the Israelites because then what will people think? And I was literally telling God, you have to do something. You have to do something. And what came to me was, as much as you love them, how much more can I help and love them? So I had to trust that was what was going on. And there was so many things at that point. Once my eyes were opened and I said, okay, I have to trust this process. I am going to go insane. I'm probably going to, drop dead of a heart attack because I was so stressed out. I won't deny there was volumes of vodka involved. I mean, just to kind of try and settle my spirit and keep my physical sense from my brain making me crazy. But getting the attorney and then, his feedback about my condition really helped me, because when I went in and said, I only want what's best for the kids, it had nothing to do with her. At this point, my focus was completely off of her and what she was doing. I came in, look, I have to take care of my children. It's my job. I can't allow, myself to go into this abyss of either mental sickness or alcoholism and turn my back on my job. This is my duty to care for my children. And that was one of the key factors in him being willing to take my case. Is he said, you came in here completely concerned about the children. You had no concern about her, about getting her back, about, making her pay. It was just about, I have to help my children. He said, that's the only reason I took your case. He said, I don't normally take divorce cases, but because you were so adamant that this was about your children, then I was completely willing to do that. So that was the first thing. And then there was certain judges in Paulding County at the time, and he was telling me which judge would be the best judge to get. And we walked through the whole thing about which one was the best. And then when I actually handed him the divorce paperwork, he said, well, guess what? You got that judge because, I guess the judge's
Luck of the
initials.
draw.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The judge's initials are at the end of the case. So he said, yeah, you got the right guy. So, that's in our favor too. And I fully believe that, his faith was being, worked on as we were going through this because he was watching me. Right. And so even in the process of all my horror that I was going through, I was being used to help others. And so that helped me a little bit with the process of where we're going with Be Better, Not Bitter too, because it showed me that even in the midst of the worst, you can still be an agent of change for somebody else. So we went through all this, and he's a very fastidious attorney, which is why it was so expensive. Unfortunately, the boy's mom, she wasn't really paying attention, I don't think. She was a lot of things that were getting dropped on their end. I don't think her attorney was really, working hard for her. And that was good and bad. Good for my case, not necessarily for hers. But we were able to put together a very rock solid case. And because my attorney was one of these, every T crossed, every I dotted, he didn't miss anything. There was lots of things in discovery that were handled and lots of things that came out, and he grabbed hold of and said, these are things that are going to help us if we have to go to court. And so that was a big part, was knowing that the attorney was on my side and that he was absolutely paying attention to every detail of my case. I think a lot of guys don't pay attention to what's going on. And another thing, Jenny, quite frankly, is because I had always worked from home, I was very much a part of my children's lives. And I think a lot of men go out and say, I'm killing myself to support my family. But the mom is the one who knows the kids. They're the ones that are wiping the snotty noses and, hugging the boo-boos and doing the baths and just, they know the kids, they know the teachers. So to any guy who's going through this, be a part of your children's life. Make sure you know who they are. You know what their fears are. That was one of the questions. What's their favorite color? What's their favorite food? What's their biggest fear? If you don't know those things about your child, it's going to be really tough for a judge to say, hey, I'm going to let you raise this kid because you don't know the kid, right?
Oh, yeah.
That's no fault. Most guys, it's not a fault. It's just what happens, right?
Right. It's the roles that they've fallen into and that what's worked for their marriage. But I think that, you were asking for custody as a father. And while the law does not say there's a preference, in reality, we know that there is. And so, you went into court, you were prepared. And it's funny because that's a question that we typically ask the clients on the stand is, their teachers' names. And you would be shocked that sometimes they're not even prepared enough to be able to spit out the teachers' names on the stand. But ultimately, you ended up having to go to trial because y'all could not agree. And you won custody of your children. But let's first talk about what was that trial like for you, having to be in a courtroom and, having to say things about your children's mom to do what you felt was in the best interest of the children, or vice versa, her having to say things about you. How did that affect your relationship, and how did that feel to you at the time?
Well, there was no relationship at that point. I mean, this other individual, there was just a lot of poison, and it was being poured in, and I stood on that. I absolutely stood on the grounds that I've known this person and loved this person for 24 years. It was 22 at the time. And I said, you know what? This isn't who she is. This isn't how she is. This is not her. And I refuse to accept that she's changed that dramatically. This has to be some outside forces causing this. And again, my fault. I allowed it to happen. I'm supposed to protect her. I'm supposed to be, the guy who's in charge and strong. And I wasn't able to do that. So I accept that responsibility, but I didn't throw all the guilt for all of it on her. I refused to do that. I remember writing, the last thing I wrote on the legal pad before my attorney got up to speak to her was, be nice. Don't attack her. I still love this woman. She's still my wife until the judge says no. She's still my wife. So I never at any point in time wanted to assault her and attack her and break her down. That 20 something years of relationship, it didn't just go out the window for me. I really
Mhm.
stood on that. So there was some things that had to be said in the courtroom that devastated me. I mean, my attorney really had to drag it out of me. I was hemming and hawing and trying my best not to have to say things that were going to harm her credibility. Even though, I mean, that's his job, right? His job is to
Right.
show that I'm the more fit parent, that she's not going to be. And I guess again, that's where my faith came in, is I just absolutely trusted the fact that, and I even had to, I was caught in a bold-faced lie about my past when I was 20 years old, and that came out. And I had to tell my attorney and look the judge right in the face and say, yeah, I lied about that. And it was 20 something years prior, but you know what?
Right.
It was still there. And I had to face that and admit that and be truthful. And again, that was one of those things that you just had to trust. I had to trust in my faith and say, it's still going to be okay. Me telling the truth is going to be better than me lying and having that on my conscience and not being able to have the results that we're looking for. So I will say flat out that it sucked. It really sucked sitting in the courtroom, looking at somebody I loved and having to undermine their credibility and prove them to be an unfit parent. And I fully hated that. It was the worst thing. And we were 8 hours in a courtroom. I mean, we broke for lunch and had to come back. It was
Right.
terrible. But ultimately, from all the testimony that was given, and even when her attorney was crossing me, and he was trying to pull out that I was violent, that I was angry, that my boy's mom didn't even know the truth as to how and why I got out of the Marine Corps. I had been lying to everybody for my entire life up to that point and saying it was because I was violent. I had struck somebody and I got out because of an assault charge. And it wasn't. It was a marijuana charge. I got busted smoking pot. And I had never even told her. So when that came out, and here again, trusting in my faith, when that came out, that undermined their entire case because they were building on the fact that I was going to be a violent person, right? That I
Right.
hit somebody. That's why I got out of the Marine Corps. So why do things happen? I don't know. But that happened to work very much in my favor. And
Mhm.
so at that point, their case had no teeth, and her attorney tried his best to get me to blow up. He was yelling at me and spit flying out of his mouth while he was getting the veins in his head popping out, trying to goad me into reacting. And that's when that piece just came. It was like his words were hitting a teleprompter and just scrolling down. And I had such peace at that point that it was supernatural. So I was able to get through it. And the judge, after hearing from a guardian ad litem who had to come and interview us and talk to us and see us in our natural habitat, right?
Yes.
He even testified in my favor. So we wound up the judge saying, he gave us the house. He gave me primary custody. We had joint custody, but I had primary, and he gave us child support. Even there was because of where I was at that time, we were financially kind of close. So there was it's not a lot. I'm sure it is to her. She spent the last 12 years paying it, but it wasn't a ton of money, but it was very helpful over the years. But it was mind blowing that we were able to get custody, and I was very, very grateful. But still kind of heartbroken. It wasn't
Right.
it wasn't the result that I wanted. I said in the courtroom, if she'll say right now, let's stop this and go to counseling and save our family, I would have done that. I absolutely would have done that. I still at that point, even the day of trial, was willing and able and would have saved our marriage and saved our family because I know the devastation of divorce. And believe me, we've had some fallout from it. There's been some things in my children's lives, in her life, in my life that could have been different had we been able to reconcile and work these things out.
And so you have this court battle, right? And you're having these arguments and you're putting your future in someone else's hands, right? Who does not know you from Adam, doesn't know your kids. And so everybody's doing the best they can to figure out what's best for the kids. You end up getting custody. Y'all are walking out of the courtroom. How do you go forward from there with mending that relationship? How did you get to that point where you realized we're done with that, but this is still my children's mom, and we've got a long road ahead.
I could tell you it was years. It was years, Jenny. Oh my gosh. I don't even want to go into the ugliness, the rereading every text and every email 50 times to try and make sure there was nothing inflammatory. Any inflection wouldn't be. We couldn't talk on the phone. We couldn't see each other face to face. There was so much poison in our relationship, so much toxicity that being able to avoid it as much as possible was my best way of handling it. I didn't date at all during the divorce. I didn't even think about another woman during the divorce. I stayed focused on our children and what I was doing my best to do. And I, thankfully, another woman did show up about, I don't know, 2, 3 months after that. And she's now my wife, but she rode that out with me. I don't know many people that would have or been able to. The funny story is because she only knew my children's mother as this monster, seeing that my side of the post-divorce fallout, right? And
Right.
believe me, you get custody of a child and the judge grants you child support. Women are ugly. I'm just going to say, I was told, what kind of a man would do that? What kind of a man would take their children away from their mother? What kind of a man would take money from a woman? It was bad. It was really, really bad. I was ridiculed. I was, I don't know. Nothing like I'm sure people of other races go through, but I felt very dehumanized. I felt very minimalized. It was tough. It was tough to be a strong, positive influence for my children while I felt so attacked. But I did everything I could. My faith stayed, and I continued to do everything in my power. There was breakdowns. I screamed. I lost my mind a few times. I'm not going to deny it. It was not a good time for either of us. But there came a point where I guess the influences that had caused and helped get us to the divorce and had continued to cause that ugliness got removed from the relationship. And when those influences were removed, some clarity started to come. There was a necessity to focus on the children. The kids didn't really want to go and see her. There was a lot of outside influences that were causing them to really have bad feelings towards the whole situation that she had put herself in. And so it was a struggle. For a while, I tried to encourage them to go. I tried to force them to go. The place where she moved was very close to where I lived. And so even if I had forced them to go with her, they probably would have got out of her car and just run home. They wouldn't have stayed there. So there was a lot. The police got called a lot. And luckily, because I think she wasn't paying so much attention during the divorce, we were able to get the judge to sign off on the paperwork that we drew up, right? So my attorney said, I'll draw up the paperwork. And obviously then you have to get agreement from them on all the points. And it went back and forth a couple of times, but then we got no response. And the last
Right.
writing of it, there was no response for weeks. And we tried for I think it was 3 weeks to get a response from email or a phone call, and we couldn't. So we got the judge to sign off on it. And one of them was that I was responsible for the welfare and my decision was final in all matters pertaining to the children, which
Mhm.
that was devastating for her side, because anytime it came to where I felt like this wasn't going to be good for them, I could just say, hey, no, this isn't going to be good for them. And that was it. There was nothing else to be said. And her only option would have been to go back to court at that point and get it changed. But there was no money and, no time to be able to do that. So we eventually came to the place where our children needed us. And the funny story I was trying to get to was that because my wife only knew the nastiness, that at this point where my youngest son or my middle son graduated boot camp at Fort Jackson and came home, he wanted us to have dinner together as a family. And so we had
Meaning your
dinner.
ex-wife
Yes.
with, yes.
Their mom, my wife, and all the boys to sit down at the table and eat. And she agreed to come to our house. This was the first time she'd been back to the house since the divorce, because we still live in the same house. And my now wife was very, very concerned and very nervous and anxious. But we had a great dinner and we all talked and we had a great time. And their mom was really, nice. The ugliness was behind us. The animosity was reduced. And so we did have pleasant conversations and we were able to talk. And when she left, my wife said, has she always been such a cool person? And I said, well, I wouldn't have stayed with her for 24 years, right? If she wasn't, you just saw the worst of it. And so now I'm glad you've been able to see the other side of it. And now we've had her over for dinner a few times. We've gone out to dinner as a family together. She was over for dinner recently and hung out. And I had some old photos that I had been holding on to. And I said, these she needs to have these. And so I gave them to her and we sat at the dinner table and talked about them. And it was, my wife was a little uncomfortable about it because I said, look, we've been apart for 12 years. You don't have any concerns, but there's allowing ourselves to have the reduction of negativity and arguments has been so great for our kids. And
I was about to say, what have you seen as far as the difference in your children with releasing all of that anger and animosity? What has that done? Even though your children are older, what have you seen for them?
I'll say that my middle son still struggles a little bit with relationships. He has, and I'm probably mostly me because I raised him, right? They were with me most of the time. And so I believe that I could have done things differently, and he's still struggling with some of those things. But for the most part, them seeing us working together as a unit, as a team for their benefit has been nothing short of amazing. My youngest son was in the hospital recently. And I was at the point of, we had been to the emergency room all day, and I was at the point of losing my mind and was going to have to drive over to Scottish Rite in the middle of the night to take him over there. And she was going to come and meet us there and spend the night with him. And thankfully, after much prayer from some friends on my end, I fully believe that's what it was. But she called and said, why don't I just come over to Paulding and I'll go to Scottish Rite. You go home. You've been out all day. So, she was thinking about me. She was thinking about the kids, but she was also thinking about, hey, he's been stressed out for 48 hours over this. It'd probably be better if I came in at this point and helped out. And then we were able to have a chance to sit and talk it out and talk through a day. And this was just recently. So much healing, much positive influence. I've seen a lot of really amazing things come out of it, not just between her and I, but between the children and her, between my wife and her, my wife and I. There's been a great relief and a release of tension that's really been positive and helped all of us, I believe, to move forward. And again, that all stood on the fact that I never went after her personally. That wasn't my point. It wasn't my desire. I wanted what was best for our family. And I think to any guy that's watching this, keep that focus. Stay focused on what's best for your family, no matter what. I had no desire to be divorced. It's, besides my lack of attention to my wife at the time and a willingness to say, hey, we can't do this, or even maybe get physically violent, because that was the only thing I didn't do. I tried everything else. I was focused on what would be best for my family, not attacking her. And I think to any guy going through a divorce, that is paramount. Know your children.
I think it's true for both. For both people, both for the husband and the wife. Don't, the personal attacks are so heavy too on the person that is making them. And keeping the best interest of the children really at the forefront will allow you to feel okay about having to move forward with the process. And I think that it's so interesting that your company, your nonprofit, is Be Better, Not Bitter, because that's exactly what this is.
Poster child.
Exactly. And your website, or y'all's tagline, I just love it. It's don't be the sum of what life has done to you. And I think you model that. And I am so thankful that you were so candid about your divorce experience. But I would like to take a few minutes to talk about Be Better, Not Bitter. What is your company? What do you do? And really, how can people get involved?
Awesome. Thanks so much for asking, Jenny. So my best friend and I in the whole world watched his two daughters go through struggles with boys, the boys going through their own struggles with the law and drugs and getting in trouble. And one of them continuously went back to the trouble. He struggled and struggled and struggled, no matter how much we tried to help him and mentor him and show him how to be the man he needed to be, because the daughter had a child with him at this point. The kid couldn't get away from it. And every time we would ask him, why do you keep doing this? He would say, you don't understand. You don't know my past. You don't know what I've been through. And yeah, I know nobody knows what any of us have been through, but why can't you break free from that? The other daughter, same kind of situation with the boy. He actually left her at the altar and chickened out when they were supposed to get married and came back and made it right. They now have two beautiful kids. They're living in a nice home in Florida. He is a supervisor for a roofing company, which great job in Florida. And he started his own line of clothing. He's a hunter. He started his own line of clothing, which is fairly successful. And he decided he wanted to be an EMT to help people. So why was he able to be better while this other kid was so bitter? And that's where the name came from. And we watched this. We physically watched it happen. And we really tried to figure out what was causing it and how do people process what they've gone through. And so Ronnie wanted to just come up with cool hats and logos, put this on bumper stickers and T-shirts and really promote the idea, be better, not bitter, because it's just a good way to think, right? But I wanted to have some sort of tangible product or service that we could use to help people. And so, unfortunately, during the divorce, my father died. And then close after that, my very best friend in the whole world, we'd known each other 20 something years. We were supposed to grow old together and go golfing and, chasing girls and stuff. He died in a tragic car accident on Friday the 13th. So now I'm like the triple poster child for Be Better, Not Bitter, right? I had to do something to get out of my anger and frustration, because I'll tell you what, when you lose your best friend in the whole world, it's a tough angle to go down. It was very difficult for me. I went into a dark place for a long time, but I realized that wasn't what he would have wanted. It certainly wasn't who I am. So owning a computer company, I had been collecting used computers for years. I had a garage full of used computers, and I thought, I'm going to teach a tech class and I'm going to show kids how they can be better, how they can overcome what life has done, and they can rise up to be a positive influence in other people's lives. So we incorporated the name, we applied for nonprofit status, and literally 11 days after we applied to the IRS online, we got a letter in the mail to the nonprofit. And I thought, oh, we messed something up and they need more information. No, it was our approval letter. So 11 days after we applied, and this is at the time when it was still taking 2 years to get a nonprofit approved, right? So we were able to get that quickly. And when Snowmageddon happened, I was walking home from one side of town and I walked past where the Boys and Girls Club is in our town. And I said, I had that little voice in my head that said, there's your students. Because I had the computers and I knew what I wanted to do, but I didn't know where I was going to get the students. And so this little voice in my head was like, there's your students. And yeah. I was freezing and slipping and I was still 2 miles from home. And lo and behold, I called them and they said, yes, we would love to have a program that would teach kids computers. We came up with a name. It's called March for Tech. And you can check it out at march4tech.com. And we went into the club with about 15 kids that all started the class like this, giving me the evil eye, and ended the class with running in the door every morning, high five. And we went in every day for 2 hours a day, all summer long, and taught the kids about computers. Every kid got one in front of them and a toolkit, and we tore them apart and we put them together. But what we were really doing, Jenny, was we were learning the systems, but not just the computer systems, the systems of the industry, the systems of business, the systems of families, the systems, how everything is connected. And how I, through my tragedy and the things I had been through, was now able to pour value back into them. I was able to show them by my actions that they mattered. And I've heard a statistic, I don't remember where, I've been trying to find it, but if a child hears from one adult that's not their parent or their teacher, because in their heads, a parent or a teacher has to care, right?
Right.
One
you
gave
have
birth.
yes.
Yeah, one gave birth and one's getting paid, right? But if
Right.
somebody else comes alongside them and says, you matter, I think you have value, that child is 83% more likely to be successful in their life. It blew my mind. I was like, how many kids can I tell that to before I die? And now I had a platform. I had an actual program. I had the carrot. They wanted the computer because the deal was, if you stuck it out through the course, you got to keep the computer at the end of the year, right? So it was a 2-month course during the summer. Any kid that wanted, the technology would certainly want that. And then we were able to have the platform to show them by our actions and our words. And it wasn't easy. Believe me, those kids came in there with lots of issues. I had one kid, ADD had nothing on him. He was like high definition ADD. I could be talking right to his face and he could wander away from me. And I would like hit him in the head with a box, like, focus, come on, Daniel, get back to me, stay here. And now, he's being successful. He's doing good in his life. He's into the normal teenage things that are getting kids in trouble, but we were able to do that. And we've now completed our 6th year with that. Now we're starting another program we're putting together to try and help. There's 10 million seniors that live in this world alone, or in this country alone. And they're going through isolation issues even before COVID. And they're going through housing security issues and food security issues. And we're trying to set up programs to not just get their homes straightened out, get them plugged into other relationships with other seniors, but also, I don't know if you know, but in this country, there's a foster care system that a lot of people just do for the money. And when the child turns 18, the foster parent doesn't get any money after that. And those kids just wind up on the street. So why can't we get these seniors that need somebody else and these kids that need somebody to teach them life values and skills, how to cook, how to wash your underwear, how to make a bed, how to be a decent human being. And we could pair those up. And then ultimately volunteering, because every statistic shows that a senior that is volunteering and serving another human being lives a happier, healthier, they're on less medication, they are less of a burden on the medical system, and they like what they do. And so Be Better, Not Bitter is in the process of trying to mobilize people and engage people to see that volunteering is the way to help yourself feel better, not just to help the other person, because that's a huge benefit, but it helps you feel better. When you write a check for a cause that you fully believe in, the endorphins in your head, the dopamine in your head that you release is better than any drug that the medical association can give you. It heals you physiologically when you do things like that. I just heard Warren Buffett say the other day, I will not donate my money to my children. It would destroy them. It would destroy them, because being given that. So Warren Buffett, even with all his money, wants to give it away. These people that have a lot of money, they know that there's nothing that they can do to get more time. But to be healthier and feel better is the key. And giving away what you have and volunteering is a huge part of that. So that's what we want to do. We want to help people engage and volunteer for whatever that looks like to them. Who knows what their community needs, what their neighbor needs, what their local Salvation Army needs. There's so many possibilities, and we want to be the conduit to help people find those and find that healthier, happier life that we all need.
Well, and there's such a value to a few things that you said, community, right? So giving the older people in our community, the seniors that don't have that community anymore, giving that to them. And also there's a huge value in volunteering, whatever their age is. You and I have talked about this before. I have 2 young children, and when I have the opportunity to volunteer at something where where they will take my 4 and 6-year-old, which is usually just handing out food because they're quite frankly not that helpful. But they love those opportunities to be able to, sort the food, pick up the food, put it in someone's car. And the value that my children get from doing that far exceeds what they're actually doing. But the lessons that they're learning of pour into other people is just something that you can't buy. It doesn't matter how much money you have. And so I love that Be Better, Not Bitter is kind of catapulting the importance of the volunteering. Let's talk just briefly, really quick, about the Boys and Girls Club in Paulding County, because you're working on a pretty big project for that, right?
Yeah, that's it's a sad situation, but with COVID, there's the parent organization over the local club is out of Metro Atlanta, and unfortunately, they had a huge shortfall of funding last year. So they came to us July of 2000 and said, "We're closing your doors in December." At the time, I was on the board for the Paulding Club. And we kind of stood our ground and said, well, that's ridiculous. You can't put 200 kids on the street. I think there's a lot of unwillingness to accept the situation that we have, even in a small rural county like Paulding. There's, we don't have a homeless problem, is what a lot of people want to say. We don't have a drug problem. We don't have a gang problem. My youngest son, he worked with a kid recently. The kid's oldest brother was just shot and killed. And it was a drug or alcohol issue where his roommate and him got into a fight. Maybe it wasn't a deal, maybe it wasn't some sort of finance, but the kid's gone. And this
Right.
happened right here in Paulding County. And so we are looking at a situation where if they close that club, we're going to have 200 kids that don't have any services. They don't have a place to go after school. They don't have a place in the summer to go every day while their parents are working. And so we stood our ground and said we refuse to allow that to happen. And we had a financial piece and we had a facility piece. So the financial piece, we were able to meet hands down. This community stepped up and they gave us the money we needed to go to Metro Atlanta and go, okay, we have the money now to stay open through 2021. What else do we have to do? And now we're working on a facilities piece, but the building we're in was built 20 years ago. It does not fit the pattern that we need. It doesn't fit the programs that we're trying to hold, the children that we're trying to hold. So 3 years ago, I had this vision to build a $50 million community center. It just out of the blue. Why is it? I have no idea. And at the same time, I had been given, I'm a very faithful man. And I don't necessarily read the Old Testament, but this chapter out of the Old Testament popped up. I'm like, okay, what's this all about? And I thought it was something unrelated to a business that I was starting. That I was trying to motivate a team and show them that we were going to make profit out of this. It was going to work out right. And unfortunately, because of COVID, that business tanked. I'm $50,000 in the hole from that. But when COVID hit and they came to us and said, we're closing your club, that's when the two things came together, the $50 million center and this Old Testament chapter out of it. I was like, okay. So basically what it said was, you have everything you need to do what you need to do. And so we're going to start fundraising. We're going to see how much this community believes, how we can get motivated and plugged in, how we can help other people volunteer their time, their efforts, their resources, their finances to serve the children of this community. And it's not just the kids. At this point, it's the community in general. In Paulding County, 88% of the county budget comes from residential property taxes. We cannot sustain that. There's no way. So we propose to build a huge gem in the crown of Paulding County that will attract the attention of outside sources, big businesses, tech companies, and other taxable, high wage paying jobs that can come in here. We have the space for them. If we can get low environmental impact with high wages, we already are working with Google. We already are working with Microsoft. We already are working with Amazon and Airbnb. And they're already here. They're coming into Atlanta. They're bringing their resources. We propose that this community center would have a huge tech incubator, right? So the kids could come in and get trained and learn what it really means to be a programmer or an engineer or all these jobs we need in Paulding County. So let's promote that. So we've launched a fundraiser right now. We're teamed up with one of the Harley Davidson dealerships in town, Atlanta Harley Davidson of Atlanta. And we're going to give away a 2021 Harley Davidson. So on our website, there's a place to buy raffle tickets. And we're only going to sell 2,000 of them. So your odds are great to win. It started April 1st. We're working on the rest of the marketing and promotion right now, but you can go to bbnb.org and click on Win a Harley and buy tickets and help promote that and help us get the money that we need to show that we have skin in the game and that we fully are going to put our money where our mouth is, that we believe in this county, we believe in our children, and we are honored to be serving alongside the residents and the citizens of this county to serve those children, to serve those people. So there's a lot to be said about that, and there's more than we can say here. But as we get more and as we put the website together, you'll be able to find out all about it there. We're doing videos and all this social media stuff to really help people understand what we're doing. But thank you for the opportunity to share that as well, Jenny, because we're very excited about what that would mean, not just for the kids, but for the county in general, the homeowners, everybody, the school systems, everything that it would bring to be who we need to be in Paulding County.
Well, it's awesome because you're not only investing in, the people there now in the county, it's an investment in the future, in those future generations that are going to be fundamentally changed by coming through and having those resources. So I think that is wonderful. Last question is, how can people get plugged in to Be Better, Not Bitter? I know you've mentioned the website and there's going to be a new one. Is that the best place for them to go? What's the next step?
Well, the website's actually up and running. So here's the website that they could go to. And on that website, there's a place where you can sign up. You don't have to donate anything. You don't have to buy a ticket for the Harley. You can either sign up to say, yes, I'm interested in being involved. We're going to need a lot of people that are willing to put in an hour a week, maybe, even if that, right? That we can give you the address, the email address, the phone number of your city councilman, your county commissioner, your state senator, your state representative, because we're going to need a lot of people mobilized to really push this issue. And so if you want to just sign up and give us your email address so we can keep you up to date on what's happening, there's a place for that. If you want to sign up and say, yes, I'll put a sign in my yard that says, I believe in Paulding County and I stand behind this community center, or a bumper sticker on your car, we'd be glad to send you that. And we'd be honored to have you on board our team. And there's also, obviously, you can donate directly or get in on the raffle to help us get the money we need to start this promotion and launch this. If you know anybody that's a celebrity that would really love to be involved in something like this in this local area, getting them involved, tagging them in some of our social media posts would be great. Because once we get a Tyler Perry or a Dwayne Johnson involved, then the sky's the limit. So we're very excited about that. And we have all the opportunities for everybody to get plugged in right there on the website.
That's what I was about to say. How do we get The Rock? I mean, we know he's around here, right?
Just keep tagging him in those posts, man. He'll see him eventually, right?
Exactly. Well, thank you so much, Robin, for your time. I really appreciate it. And, your message is great. And I think that it really resonates with a lot of people. And I'm so grateful that you've taken the time to speak with us today. And I hope you have a good day.
Awesome. Final words, just to anybody going through it, there is hope. The light at the end of the tunnel doesn't have to be a train. You get to decide. You get to decide whether you want to be a sum of what life has done to you or whether you want to be better, not bitter. And that's the whole point of the game, is that your children deserve better, your spouse deserves better. And God bless it, if you're in the midst of that tragedy, you can't do what you need to do to serve your fellow man. So do everything you can to avoid it. But if it happens, be the best you can, hold your head up high, treat everybody with respect, and don't melt down into that abyss of just anger and pain and toxicity that comes from divorce. It's not good for anybody.
You will get through it. That's what we try to remind people, that there is light at the end of the tunnel, and you've got to focus on that, right? Don't focus what's inside, focus on the finish line.
Absolutely.
And getting past it.
Thank you so much, Jenny. I appreciate the opportunity to speak to you today, and I'm looking forward to just working with you and helping you in anything I can with your business and with anybody that's going through the struggles that I went through, and being able to help them as well. So you have an awesome day. Okay.
You too. Thank you, Robin.
All right. Take care.
Bye.